And again, I'll just say thank you for joining us for our next Ministry Meetup. This has been a great series of lunchtime workshops that we're offering on behalf of Economic Developers Alberta to help educate our members and introduce them to various ministries and programs that are out there. Today's topic is research and technology, and we've got some great speakers that we'll introduce in a moment. But this whole series actually has been sponsored by AUMA, the Alberta Urban Municipalities Association. Really appreciate their gold sponsorship of this series and helping us make this modified version of our ministry meetups into a reality. So with that, I'll introduce Ashley Morgan, who's the Executive Officer for AUMA for Marketing, Communications and Strategy, to say a few words about not only their organization, but why they've been a part of this adventure with us. Ashley, over to you.
Thanks, Trevor. Hi, everyone. So AUMA represents summer villages, towns, cities, and specialized municipalities in Alberta. So where 85% of Albertans live. So it is our pleasure to partner with EDA on these ministry meetups. And me particularly, I'm really excited for this session. Innovation, tech, and research is of utmost importance to our members, particularly with economic development and COVID-19 and being able to adapt to COVID-19 and the impact that has had on municipal operations. So for AUMA on the innovation front, we're actually currently recruiting for a Senior Director of Innovation and Growth. So very excited about this position. This individual will be discovering, promoting innovative ideas, thoughts, and opportunities within AUMA and within AUMA's membership. Another quick thing that I want to mention is our Economic Resiliency and Recovery Task Force. So this task force is responsible for determining and coming up with solutions to help support local economic development. We have members of EDA on this task force, as well as U of A and Western Economic Diversification. So again, thank you EDA for providing us this opportunity and me a chance to say hello to everyone. And again, really looking forward to this session.
Awesome. Thanks, Ashley. We really do appreciate AUMA's sponsorship of this series and your partnership with our organization overall. So thank you for being with us today. The format for today is a panel discussion. So each one of our speakers will introduce themselves, talk a little bit about the programs and supports and services that are available through their respective teams. We'll do that for each member of our panel. And then we'll reconvene after each person has spoken to address your questions and capture any concerns or questions that come from the audience. And we'll do our best to monitor the chat channels. You're welcome to park some questions in there. We'll come back to those and we'll do our very best to squeeze them all in at the end of today. So again, appreciate you all joining us. We found these sessions to be quite useful and a great way to connect not only our membership, but also connect you to some resources and programs that are out there. With that, I'll invite Robert Faulder to speak. He's with IRAP, so he can perhaps educate us a little bit more about that program if you're not familiar with it. And I'll pass it to you, Robert.
Okay, thank you. I could do this. So let's do it this way. Share my screen. Maybe. How about this screen? Can you guys see that? Do you see my IRAP or you just seeing me or nothing?
Seeing nothing at the moment.
Okay, this isn't, let me go back here. Where's my shares? This is when you work different technologies, Microsoft, Google Drive, Box.
Multiple screens and multiple platforms is always part of it.
Okay, I'm not going to bother with that. I'll just use my. You can see me now, I hope.
You sure can.
Okay, I'm the Director General for the Industrial Research Assistance Program, IRAP Prairies. I'm responsible for Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba. IRAP is a program of the National Research Council, NRC. I've been doing these things so long, we talk everything in acronyms, TLAs, 3-letter acronyms, but I'll try to spell them out in the first time. IRAP has been around since, well, we're 74 years old. We just launched it. We're going to celebrate our 75th birthday next January. Came out of the Second World War effort to get technologies from the laboratories and universities into the manufacturing firms and technologies and businesses. We've been doing that ever since. What is important for the folks in the Economic Development Association in Alberta to know is there are 26 industrial technology advisors and 2 client engagement advisors in Alberta that are the client-facing field staff of IRAP. They are the folks that prior to March 16th, 2020, visited the firms and were, I'll say, in the face of the businesses. Since then, like everybody else, we have been working virtually. IRAP is an advisory services program. The A in IRAP is advice. The A in industrial technology advisor is, or client engagement advisor is advisor. Most folks come to IRAP because they hear that we actually have dollars. We get to the dollars that we are non-repayable contributions with firms, but that's after a bit of a journey. And we like to say, what is the plan and what is the strategy for firms that are actually in the innovation game? We want to see them grow. Our business is to grow these firms, make sure that they get to market with, I like to say, get to market quicker, faster, better, have a better process, product, or technology, and they get to that end prime. Not just that we have money. We have in COVID had our own industrial assistance program, which was the client or Canadian emergency wage subsidy for small tech firms that didn't qualify in other rounds of the government funding. We put that in. That's not our main business, but we had a program that we could bolt on and deliver that. The industrial technology advisors are the folks that any of your companies that you're working with, and I know Alberta Innovates is on the call, you want to get in front of these folks and say, this is what I'm doing. And there's 300 of these folks across the country that the 26 in Alberta will actually partner up with and say, I have a company that's in this area, and we cover all aspects of, I say, aquaculture to zoology, touch all 3 oceans in the country. I'm responsible as well for the Northwest Territories. I don't have anybody physically up there at this time, but Nunavut, East Coast looks after Nunavut, Pacific side looks after the Yukon. So we are across the country. These field staff are usually folks that have been in business, run their own business, developed technologies, made their money. Now they're back into IRAP to give that back to the firms. We are, people always ask about the money. We're approximately a $350 million program across the country now. I have about 45 million fully placed in Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba this year. We don't have an online sort of application form. We invite firms, to submit a proposal. It's not an entitlement program. We actually have to see where we're actually going and work. You just can't apply and do it. It's not like Shred where it's there. We want to see where these firms are actually growing. And it's non-repayable, but the firms do have to put their money in. It's a cost shared program. We're looking for the key people in the firms that are going to grow the technology, grow that business, and allow them to be successful as the program rolls on. I do have 2 directors, one in Edmonton, one in Calgary. So if you have firms or you want to get more detailed information, send me an email, drop me a line, get the contact information. I'll make sure that one of the directors gets one of their field staff out. We are virtual now. It's unfortunate because as being a sort of a touch contact sport, it is difficult, but we're managing like everybody else to do this. So look forward to the questions at the end of this. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Robert. Appreciate the insights. I certainly see my TDA in Lethbridge as a lifeline to connect startups, entrepreneurs, and the ecosystem. Very grateful for his presence in our market for sure.
Yep.
Next, we'll move to Janet and Stephanie. So Janet is with the Strategy and Innovation Policy sector, and then Stephanie's with Innovation Canada, and they'll be talking a little bit about how they can support and what they do. So hand it over to you, Janet.
All right, I'm not Janet, I'm Stephanie, but I am gonna man the screen for us.
Great.
Can you guys see my full screen right now?
Yes.
Okay. Let me know if it's in presentation mode or if I need to switch it. Can you guys see my next slide, the next slide?
It's in presentation mode as opposed to full screen presentation.
Okay, how's this?
Much better.
Okay, go. I'll pass it over to Janet, put myself on mute and hop on at the end.
Janet, are you there? We can't hear you.
Maybe having issues. Janet, can you hear us?
Hello?
There you go.
There we go.
Okay. Sorry about that. It just seems like just at that moment we did the handover, my internet did some weird, bizarre thing. So my apologies for that. And I'll just get started like right away. So thank you, Stephanie, for queuing up the presentation. And I'm just going to go to Okay, so we're part of Innovation Science and Economic Development Canada. So, and right now I'm the Acting Regional Director General for the Prairie and Northern region. Prairie and Northern covers Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Northwest Territories, and Nunavut. So it's kind of a big geographic area with lots of innovators. Just in terms of the departmental mandate, we are focused on improving conditions for investment, supporting science, helping businesses grow, building capacity. I just like to highlight that we work in partnership with 17 different departments and agencies. Innovation, Science, and Economic Development is the I would say the policy engine behind what the government is doing in terms of investing in science and innovation. So if we can go to the next slide then, Stephanie. So like I said, we're the eyes and ears on the ground for Alberta in Prairie Northern region. So I'm talking about the strategic and innovation policy sector. We have a few staff on the ground, and what we do is we try to provide coordination of the department on the ground with other federal presence and local organizations such as EDA or their members, and provide information and also to flag any particular policy issues to Ottawa that would feed into the policy making process. So next slides. We have, like, we touch on dozens of programming that basically touch all aspects of business, from startup to growth, to patents, to sales, and sadly even cover bankruptcy sometimes. So sectors we're involved with include science, small business, tourism, spectrum, telecommunications, health research, high-tech developments such as robotics and gaming, oil and gas, agriculture, and agri-food. And during the pandemic, of course, we pivoted to helping businesses manufacturing PPE. And now we're starting in on a focus with biomanufacturing capacity in Canada. So there's been a lot of pivoting within the department to try and respond to the pandemic. And while still a ways to go on that, we're certainly trying. Next slide, please. Innovation Canada is part of our group, and Stephanie can speak much more to the role of Innovation Canada as her business line is part of that, but she covers she will cover some particular aspects of Innovation Canada. But the big piece that Innovation Canada covers for us is the Strategic Innovation Fund, and it facilitates growth and expansion of firms and attracting large scale job creating investments. The program is available to all firms of all sizes across Canada. And there are 5 streams. Stream 1, which is to encourage research and development that will accelerate technology transfer and commercialization of innovative products, processes, and services. Stream 2 facilitates the growth and expansion of firms in Canada. Stream 3 attracts and retains large-scale investments in Canada, and Stream 4 is to advance industrial research, development, and technology demonstration through collaboration between academia, nonprofit organizations, and the private sector. And then we're looking also at Stream 5, which is supporting the large-scale national innovative ecosystems through high-impact collaborations. And recently announced investment of over $3 billion for the new Strategic Innovation Fund. Net Zero Accelerator is, like I said, just recently announced. And this initiative will be delivered through the Strategic Innovation Fund to rapidly expedite decarbonization projects and with large emitters. So this is definitely a program that some Alberta firms may be quite interested in. On November 30th, the Government of Canada announced that the Strategic Innovation Fund would invest $250 million over 5 years to support Canada's innovative intellectual property framework, our intellectual property rich firms. And examples of SIF projects in Alberta, the Canadian Agri-Food Automation and Intelligence Network that's led by Alberta Innovates. We have a $49 million investment in that project, as well as a $34 million contribution to Adabotics in Calgary that was recently announced. Innovative Solutions Canada is part of this, and this fuels the development and adoption of technological innovation in Canada. It's to grow Canadian companies through direct funding to support early stage pre-commercialization projects. And I can certainly get you a lot more information on those things, but there are two streams under the Innovative Solutions Canada program. One of them is the challenge stream, so solve a challenge, so funding to test feasibility of your solution to our challenge, and an opportunity for letting us test your innovation. In other words, we as government would buy it and test it in a real life setting. So there are different ways of accessing those funds, and it's a very active one. Next slide, please. The superclusters, I'm sure you've all heard about. The idea behind those was to invest nearly $1 billion over 5 years. It was bringing together small, medium-sized companies, academic institutions, not-for-profits, and basically create, I guess, best way to describe it would be the Silicon Valley of, they were trying to create Silicon Valleys within different hubs of activity. The big one in the West, of course, is the protein project, and that is based out of Regina. And but all of Canadian companies can access any of the superclusters, and so you can see there on the map, you've got the digital technology supercluster, which is centered in Vancouver, the protein industries one, which I said is in Regina, the next generations manufacturing supercluster, which is in Ontario, and Scale AI, which is in Quebec, and the Ocean Supercluster, which is based in the Maritimes. So lots of interesting projects going on with those, and lots of different ways to access those. There are competitive processes and that kind of thing to bring more players into the supercluster fold. And next slide, please. I wanted to quickly mention the 50-30 challenge. What this is the government's recognition that diversity is really important. Specifically, the goals are to get gender parity on Canadian boards and senior management, and significant representation on Canadian boards and senior management, and other underrepresented groups, including the racialized persons with disabilities, and members of the LGBTQ2 community on corporate boards. This initiative has been really important to the ministry in light of all the things that are going on in society these days. And it was recently announced there will be some funding available. The programming is still under development, but to help organizations meet meet diversity goals and targets, and helping you plan as to how you might go about doing that. So definitely worth something looking into if your organization is looking at diversity options. And then final slide, for me anyways, because Stephanie has to take it after that one. I also wanted to mention the Universal Broadband Fund, and I probably don't need to tell anyone who's on this presentation that broadband has been difficult to access, and certainly the pandemic has highlighted issues with respect to rural and remote communities getting adequate internet. So the initiative there is to get a minimum high-speed internet at 50-10 megabytes per second to rural and remote communities. And so there's the rapid response stream has already closed, which was January 15th. The first project to be announced was Alberta's Starland County and Stettler County. I don't know if we have anybody on the phone there, but they can speak firsthand to how the program has worked for them if they're online. While both programs aim for rapid broadband deployment, most important difference remains the timelines of the projects. So we've got another one, there's the rapid response stream, and then there's larger project impacts. The maximum funding contribution for the rapid response stream was 5 million, but there's no similar cap under the main Universal Broadband Fund. Any technology that can be used to improve household internet connectivity is eligible for under this batch and for the main Universal Broadband Fund stream. Customer premise equipment can be considered as an eligible cost under the rapid response. And I don't want to get too much into the program detail there because I'm not expert at it, but I will tell you that I can certainly put you in touch with people who can fill you in and get you going. So with that, I think I will turn it over to Stephanie for the remainder of the presentation. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Janet. So I work under ICID with Janet as well. I'm a senior innovation advisor with Innovation Canada. Just a few slides to share and my contact info at the end, which I think will be probably the best way to connect. So on this slide, we're just highlighting the digital tools that the Government of Canada has created to help business owners figure out what resources are out there. So the Canada Business app is a mobile business consultant. So you scroll through on your phone, see what services are out there. You know, you need to retain employees, you need to set up a permit. The Business Benefit Finder is a interactive web portal where any company, any Canadian company can go to get a customized list of the programs and supports that are out there. So if they're in Alberta, they're going to get Alberta Innovates showing up. They're going to get IRAP if they're doing R&D. It casts a pretty big net, but it is a way to sort of filter based on the company's needs, their location, their demographic. So this is sort of from an Innovation Canada standpoint, this is the first tier of service. What I as an innovation advisor do, along with my colleagues, there's 30 of us across Canada, we work with the companies to say, okay, you know, there are all these things out there. Let's figure out what's the most realistic, what's the lowest hanging fruit. So those conversations are things that are what we offer to companies here in Alberta that are doing something innovative and would like to know what the government has to help them. A little bit of sort of above that is the Accelerated Growth Service. This is a service that we offer high growth, high potential firms that are incorporated in Canada to help them scale faster. And we do this, it's not a direct funding mechanism. What it is, it's an access to funding, financing, advice, and connections. We do this through a sort of whole of government approach. It's very client-centric. We work with core AGS partners, and those include NRC IRAP, Western Economic Diversification here in the Prairies, BDC, EDC, and Global Affairs Canada. Here in Alberta, we also bring on Alberta Innovates as an AGS partner. So We work with these companies for 18 months to really help them recognize their growth plan and make them aware of what it is out there that the government can offer. So a bit more of a white glove approach. So what makes an ideal company for this accelerated growth service? This is a bit more of a niche program, a niche service. We're looking for incorporated Canadian companies with year-over-year revenue growth, COVID excluded. So we're really looking at what was their trajectory before the pandemic hit. Ideally, these companies are generating 5 million annual recurring revenue. We do have the ability to sort of push companies through this that are below that, as long as we feel that there is a true need. And really, at the end of the day, the growth and the revenue are key determinants for sure. But it's also, does the company have the capacity and willingness to grow this company, to work with government? These companies are typically doing something extremely innovative. They've got if they're not exporting, it is on the horizon. They're looking to build their staff and really have that sort of global mindset. So those are the companies that we're looking for with AGS. And what I would like to throw out to you guys is, if you have companies in mind that you think fit the bill, please reach out to me. I'm happy to have a discussion. But also in terms of the programming that Innovation Canada offers, I'm happy to discuss that as well, whether it's the Strategic Innovation Fund, Innovative Solutions Canada, Clean Growth Hub, or the super clusters. So my email is there. Please feel free to reach out for a conversation. And Janet's contact info is there as well. And thank you, EDA, for this opportunity to present.
Thanks very much, Stephanie and Janet, for participating today. And for everybody's reference, the video from today's webinar will be available on EDA's YouTube. So if you do need to go back and revisit some of those programs, they fly by pretty quick with all those TLAs, those three-letter acronyms. We will have this recording available to you on EDA's website or YouTube channel shortly. We'll shift now from federal programs to some provincial organizations, and I'm really pleased that Steve is with us from Innotech Alberta. I think Innotech Alberta is one that's sometimes misunderstood and perhaps not as well known. So Steve, perhaps you can provide us with some education and let us know what's going on there.
Thank you. I'm just going to try and see if I can get something to project here. Technology is challenging me, as it did with someone else on the call here. I think it was Robert. Okay, so I'm in the same position as Robert. I am not seeming to be able to get the slides to go, which is fine. I can wing it. So first off, thanks for asking me to participate. My name's Steve McMahon, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Innotech Alberta. Innotech Alberta is a subsidiary of Alberta Innovates. So we've heard Alberta Innovates being mentioned a few times here today. We are one of the subsidiaries, and hopefully this won't cause anyone to stop listening to me, but we don't actually give out money. We do research and we develop technology, and so we're more in the working with initiatives that are already funded. May be known to some people as formerly the Alberta Research Council. Went through a couple of iterations. We're 100 years old. I'm not, but the company is, and we work with large organizations and I would say medium-sized organizations in developing their innovation initiatives. So I have a beautiful picture that I'm not able to show right now, but it essentially says that if you follow the innovation end-to-end journey, on one side of it, you'll get people who've got are discovering basic science. People are coming up with ideas. They're conceptualizing, And eventually they're going to get to a stage here where they're going to want to prototype, pilot, and test things out. And once that starts to happen, that's when we get engaged. So we are industrial scale piloting, demonstrating, de-risking, testing, and development. So we do tend to be very involved with some of the large organizations, as I said. We're mostly funded by external industry. So when external industry is going to look at doing some R&D or be part of a consortium or whatnot, or an industry group, they will develop that. They'll come up with their own funding. They may apply for public funding, but when they're ready to execute on a program, they come to Innotech. Just following the notes you can't see. We are this odd public-private organization. We have a double mandate. So as being a subsidiary of Alberta Innovates, we have an obligation to play an important role in advancing later stage technologies on behalf of Alberta Innovates and the Alberta government. So that's our public sector say mandate. Our second mandate is to support industry and corporate initiatives. And this is where the external funding comes in, where the larger companies will pay us to do work. So it's very much a classic client relationship type model, where some of the larger organizations, as well as medium size, will pay us to use our services. So the Alberta government set us up to do exactly that. So we've got the facilities, we've got the expertise, and we've got the equipment to be able to execute on programs, R&D and technology programs. And so the Alberta government set that up. So we're here ready. We get given an expense account to pay for all of that at the beginning of the year. And for the rest of the year, we are actually working with industry for money. And by the end of the year, the goal is that we haven't lost any money. So we are a not for loss business model, in that we spend the months of the year earning back the expense. So the goal is to be neutral by the end. We stay in our lane, so to speak. We try not to be what other people and other organizations are able to do. So we talk about, we play where others lack. They lack the capacity and the capabilities, the expertise, the facilities of the scale. They don't have that, and we do. So back to the government setting that up for us. We're very good at reducing risk. So obviously innovation is expensive, and the larger scale and the industrial innovation we do is even more, gets really quite crazy in terms of expense. So we're good at managing that and taking a lot of the risk out of it. I'll never say all of the risk, it's not possible. We're neutral, we are impartial, independent, and we are globally recognized. The only thing that's difficult in the recognition was the change of name, which happened in 2016. As I said, formerly ARC, now Innotech. We do technology research development. We de-risk, we pilot, we'll even build pilot plants. So full dedicated buildings that are almost production scale in industrial plants. We do testing, monitoring, as well as applying digital science as part of our our toolkit. That happens to be my background. I have a computer science background as well as an engineering background. So I'm trying to drive Innotech to take on that toolkit called data science and use it just as equally as some of our physical facilities and equipment. An example of one of our projects would be the Alberta Carbon Conversion Technology Center outside of Calgary. We sit, we're dwarfed by this massive natural gas powered power generation plant, and we take the flue gas off of that plant that's loaded with CO2, and then we have a facility there that'll separate it. And then we've set up 5 different bays, and 5 different bays for small to medium-sized organizations to use the carbon and turning it into something else. So it's essentially, what would something else be? Well, how about vodka? How about concrete and some different things? So that would be an example of the type of thing we get involved in. So it's pretty impressive if you ever get a chance to look at it. We play in the energy space, in environment space, bioindustrial, and then we've got cross-sectoral analysis and testing, and as I said, data sciences. We have over 1 million square feet of research and lab space. We actually have 600 acres of farmland out in Vegreville, where we are growing things such as hemp. Hemp is a form of cannabis, but we're focused on the non-fun kind of cannabis, the one that's got industrial value. We've got over $100 million in equipment and infrastructure, 220 staff, half of which have masters or PhDs, lots of engineers, lots of scientists, lots of technicians, and lots of technologists. So just as I say, we are part of Alberta Innovates. We have a different name because we are not part of the funding side. We do funded work, and to keep a nice separation between those two things, we've got a separate name. So I apologize for not being able to present. I did have some slides, happy to send them out later, and I'll stop there.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate the sort of helping educate people a little bit on Innotech. I think a lot of people don't understand the enormous capabilities that exist within that team and those facilities. And you might not have the money to give out, but you have vodka. So, I mean, at the end of the day, what else matters, right? So we'll shift now to the mothership. We'll talk a little bit more about Alberta Innovates and sort of that distinction. So Doug is with us, and perhaps you can help educate us on the differences.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Hopefully I can make this work here. Can you see my screen there?
Yeah, so thanks, Doug. You made me look bad.
Sorry. But I don't want to get too ahead of myself. Stephanie did such a great job of putting it in presentation mode. We'll see if I can do that. All right, well, maybe not. Maybe we'll just go as is.
Yeah, if you hit from beginning, it should pop up. Hopefully.
Oh, there we are. Excellent. Wonderful. Well, it's my pleasure to be here, and thank you for having me. My name is Doug Holt, and I'm the Executive Director of Post-Secondary Investments and Emerging Technologies at Alberta Innovates, and I look forward to telling you a little bit about what we do. Alberta Innovates, or AI as we call it, is geared to be the innovation engine of the province. We're here to support research and innovation activities around discovery, commercialization, and the application of knowledge. We work with researchers and we work with entrepreneurs, industry partners, as well as investors, looking to stimulate investors to create new things, new technology, drive new ideas, helping SMEs grow, scale, get some traction. A number of ways we can do that. We take risks where maybe others wouldn't. To help de-risk situations, we'll make investments that allow for follow-on investment to come on later on from industry or from investors. And we're looking to drive the support and the adoption of emerging technologies wherever we can, with the overall goal of creating, economic, social, and environmental benefits for Alberta. Helping Alberta reach its new potential. We often talk about the Alberta of tomorrow, right? And as we look to pivot, as we look to shift gears, we act as a funder and a service provider. As Steve eloquently alluded to, they're on the service provider side. AI provides some services around coaching as well, working with companies, but primarily we're a funder, and we have targeted programs, funding programs around our research and innovation priorities. We act as a partner and a collaborator in the ecosystem. We work with various different networks. We work with the RINs and various other different groups in the province. Primarily in those other groups exist in Edmonton and Calgary, but certainly throughout the province. As a conveyor and a connector, we advance the growth and scale of innovation by bringing together investors. And that's becoming a bigger part of what we're trying to do here, is how are we going to attract capital to the province? And so that's one of the things we look at. Before I go on there, as Steve alluded to, Innotech is a subsidiary of Alberta Innovates, as is Stefura. And in total, it's a fairly big organization, nearly 600 employees. What do we do? What do the numbers say? And that's, but what so much of it comes back to. Well, AI worked directly with over 1,200 clients in the fiscal year of 2019, 2020. If we include Innotech and Stefura in that number jumps by 770 clients. That resulted in over 1,100 new innovations and external revenue generation of nearly 50 million. Importantly, it also resulted in nearly 2,400 net new jobs funded by and created by SMEs. On the revenue side of things, we have some pretty telling metrics in terms of the impact that we're having in the province. And for every dollar that Alberta Innovates invests, $7.37 in SME revenue growth occurs. And that by itself is impressive. But if we look at the one beside it here, and I'll have to just close my thing down here one second. Follow-on investment. Follow-on investment is really an indicative piece of information, because it tells you what do professional investors think of these opportunities. And so every dollar that Alberta Innovates invests results in $23.50 of follow-on investment, 80% of which comes from private funding. Our companies are exporters, and we also create a number of highly qualified, skilled personnel in the province. Now, this was the slide that Steve was hoping to show. And if you drew a line right down the center of it, right before scaling, and started to push it out to the right, that would be where Innotech does a lot of their work. Steve, correct me if that's not where you were driving with that. But I want to show this to give the idea that Alberta Innovates covers the entire spectrum, from early stage research all the way through to commercialization and working with larger companies on meeting their goals. We are across the entire continuum. We take a systems approach to innovation. We have 4 groups. There's our biosolutions, health solutions, technology futures, energy and environmental solutions. We were consolidated into a single entity 3 years ago. And this is a big year for us, because 2021 marks a century of research and innovation in Alberta. Indeed, the Scientific and Industrial Research Council of Alberta was established in 1921, and as Canada's first provincial research organization. So this is a big one for us, and we're pretty excited about it. Our focus areas, as they are today, are around data-enabled innovation, where we're looking at AI, ML, AR, VR, cloud, data, quantum, etc. Digital tech for business transformation. Well, there we're looking at visualization technologies, synthetic twins, crypto, cybersecurity, geomatics, IoT. Clean tech, we believe it's an area that we can continue to be leaders in. We've got a lot of opportunity in this space, and there's certainly a lot of investment coming into it. So things around water, climate, emissions, and innovative product and distribution. We're looking at robotics, value add, supply chain innovation. I think it was Janet that alluded to Adabotics and their recent financing. We're very proud to say that we were early stage investors in that company and saw the value from the get-go. More granularly, our focus areas for investment these days are around digital health, working towards the quality and the sustainability of our health system, innovative hydrocarbon projects. How do we move beyond bitumen? How do we look beyond just purely the combustion of it as its only sole use, but rather look to things like graphene, carbon fiber, activated carbon, and asphalt? Smart ag is a play where we feel that there's an enormous opportunity when you look globally at demographics, population growth, economics. The world is going to be demanding much more food out of fewer and fewer places. And then you layer in climate change, and you can see that we could be in for a bumpy ride. So we believe that there's a wonderful opportunity for Alberta to act as leaders in this space. AI, artificial intelligence. From an AI perspective, we've got over 20 years of research that has been invested into Alberta, and that's put us in the enviable spot of having some of the top researchers on the planet right here in our province, including the likes which can be recognized through Google's investment in their DeepMind. And then lastly, of course, is supporting the entrepreneurial ecosystem. We continue to support a growing entrepreneurial ecosystem, looking for ways where we can work with these people and support that Alberta entrepreneurial spirit and to help them commercialize and pivot and take advantage of some of these new emerging technologies. Thank you.
Thanks, Doug. I think it's always interesting to be reminded of the breadth and scope of what Alberta Innovates is working on and the supports that are available. So thanks for sharing those with us.
My pleasure.
Last but not least, we're going to talk to Scott next from Digital Alberta. And I don't think you could possibly have an industry meet or ministry meetup talking about innovation and technology without also touching on the growing space that is interactive digital media. So Scott from Digital Alberta is going to kind of educate us about why the job growth in that space and why it matters and kind of the work that they're doing. So Scott, I'll turn it to you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Just going to go into presentation mode here. And there we go. So yes, thank you for the opportunity to talk to all of you today. And really wanted to provide an update on Digital Alberta as an organization. I've been involved in the last year. Perhaps some of you are familiar with us, others maybe just getting introduced to who we are and what we represent through the presentation today. So who we are, we represent the largest IDM companies in Alberta, interactive digital media, and we represent the province on the national stage. We're industry funded, which is very important for us because one of the things that we've really stepped up on in the last year is advocating on behalf of our industry to support government initiatives that can drive fundamental job growth in the province. So most folks are probably familiar with the success story of BioWare over the last 25 years in Edmonton, but we also represent Beamdog. Unity Technologies is in Calgary. They're now members of Digital Alberta. Improbable is the company that I work for during the day. We are our head office is based out of London, UK. But we were their first game development studio in Canada and international expansion. New World Interactive, Serious Labs up here in Edmonton, but importantly, hundreds of other additional members that are part of the Digital Alberta story right now. So why IDM is relevant, I'm not going to read this quote out, but we clearly check off a number of boxes from the Blue Journal on Alberta's finances that came out in September of 2019. There's real opportunities for job growth. And through this, I'm hoping that if you have companies that are in your backyard that are looking for like-minded peers in order to get involved and talk about the opportunities that the IDM industry represents in the province, please have them reach out and get in touch with us. So it's a growing global market. And to be very, I think that first blue bullet there is important. IDM is proven to be recession proof. And when we talk about the challenges facing the Alberta economy, to have a global market that has grown 20% year over year to $175 billion of revenue in this past year, all the challenges from the pandemic, that is unparalleled. And conservative estimates, 200 billion by 2022, with 3 billion players globally engaged in IDM products and services. And to put it into context, the one call out on the slide there, in 2018, US consumers spent as much on video games as they did on home video, music, and movies combined. And so we outstripped the movie industry a decade ago. We outstripped the global music industry over a decade ago. So video games, IDM overall is a booming global marketplace, and we're just looking for how Alberta can better participate in that growth. And what our real message is from Digital Alberta is that, yes, there is content at Improbable and at BioWare and other organizations. We create content for people to consume at home as players on their Xbox, PC, PS5, whatever. But there's growing reach into industry, and this is the real opportunity for Alberta. We have examples up here from Sirius Labs and the work that they're doing, Unity Technologies doing work with Enbridge and Suncor, Mammoth XR developing solutions for CAP. All of the billions of dollars that have been invested in the natural resource industry in Alberta over the years, now's the time to take the exact same skills, the exact same workers, the expertise that we use to develop consumer content in the IDM industry. You can tap into that exact same expertise and exploit the investments that have been made in Alberta over the years and digitize a number of applications within that natural resource development industry and take that to market. Unity and Sirius Labs are leading the way for that as two great examples in the province. So why they matter? Well, today IDM contributes $4.5 billion in total GDP to the Canadian economy, 27,000 direct jobs, highly trained, highly skilled talent. The classic story that I share all the time is getting a phone call from somebody and saying, hey, my kid really likes playing video games. Can you get them a job in QA? Well, if they have a 4-year comp sci degree, we can entertain a conversation. So this is not a low skill talent pool. It's highly skilled, highly educated. And we're collaborative by nature. And I think this is key in that there's a lot of conversation, and perhaps Alberta's in a great position right now. We firmly believe within the IDM industry that we do our best work when we're collaborative, when we're together. At the same time, I know that other organizations are also looking to expand, and the option for virtual remote work is key. So people can work anywhere in the province using the broadband infrastructure that's in place and be a successful contributing member of a team. So we have opportunities for growth there. At the same time, coming together and doing our work and filling up physical infrastructure is important for the IDM industry. And we have strong relationships into post-secondary. A lot of examples I can provide of relationships, and why? Well, because it's important. We want access to that top talent that's coming up at Alberta schools. Our challenge, 5% of Canada's IDM jobs are in Alberta. So 27,000 nationwide, only 5% of that is in Alberta. Quebec, Ontario, and BC, they dominate. Why do they dominate? They aggressively court and collaborate with industry members of all shapes and sizes. So other provinces are not sitting still, building on that point. New World Interactive lured to Calgary, but they're now expanding into Montreal. BioWare Electronic Arts has new offices in downtown Edmonton. Some of it is sitting empty while they're building out a new campus in BC. Unity arrived in Calgary in 2018. They're growing faster in Quebec and BC right now. And Improbable, we've been contacted since Quebec, or since October 2019, we've been contacted from the provinces of Quebec, Manitoba, and even PEI have made overtures to us about creating jobs there. And so without the right programs in Alberta, our IDM sector, a key part of the technology ecosystem, will languish behind the job growth of the Canadian global industry. And the opportunity is now. I use this old Chinese proverb, best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, the second best time is now. And so to be clear, we are engaging in conversations with the provincial government about ways to support the IDM sector in the province of Alberta, encouraged by the nature of the conversations that we're having. And reason why I wanted to come today and just share this story with you is that you get a sense of who we are, what we're representing, what we're trying to achieve, and really the opportunities for all of Alberta and communities in Alberta to benefit from this booming global sector. We have our foot in the door, but there's so much more that we could do together. And with that, I'll pass it back to you, Trevor.
Thanks so much, Scott. I mean, the size of the industry, the importance of that recession-proof piece, I think is really, really insightful. I appreciate you sharing that with us. And clearly we have work to do. So we want all of those things. We want 100% of the jobs right here. We're going to go after those. That brings us almost to the end of our fulsome hour here. It's been a great discussion, lots of great presentations. Before we wrap up and potentially shift to a post Q&A for those that can stay, I'll just invite Natalie Gibson perhaps to say a few words on behalf of EDA for an upcoming course, and then we'll try to close things out here. Natalie.
Awesome, thanks, Trevor. I just wanted to remind everybody that next week we are starting the online course Business Retention and Expansion. And I have made sure that I've incorporated content that is relevant to recovery at this time, as well as consideration for resiliency in the next 6 to 9 months. And the reason we've got that short time wick is there's data that we need to gather in order to plan the proper programming moving ahead. So I wanted to give everybody a heads up. It's online 4 weeks, about 15 to 20 hours total. You'll love it. Sign up. Thanks, Trevor.
We have a great cadre of instructors as a part of that community economic development training program, because if Natalie can help me learn things, then she can pretty much help anyone. So I appreciate the work that she does. So that is the end of our hour. Again, I want to say thank you to AUMA for their sponsorship of this whole series. We appreciate their partnership. What I would offer is that if there are members of the panel that can stay and have availability, great. Invite you to hang out with me as the hour clicks over. If you do have questions and want to stick around, then I'd invite people just to hang out for a few minutes after the official end of our seminar. Again, no pressure. I know people have busy commitments, especially our panelists. That is officially the hour done. But if people can stay and want to, then we'll hang out for a few minutes and answer any questions that you have.